All right, welcome to the final lecture in the module on supply chains, capital projects, and beyond. This lecture will focus on capital project execution in the oil and gas industry. The information that I'm showing in this presentation is from two key pieces of literature. The more recent one is the Oil and Gas Next Generation, so an online magazine, one issue, issue 5, March 2010, on information technology, had a discussion about some of the issues in using IT for oil and gas capital projects, and they refer to information on this technical report that was done by Booz Allen Hamilton. So we'll talk mostly about that. All right, and these two publications will be are available on the Blackboard website. So this most recent one that was that came out in 2010, Oil and Gas Next Generation, basically said some of mentioned the current challenges that that exist in capital project management for in particular offshore deepwater drilling. And in such cases, it's clear that capital investment and risk for such exploration and production projects is going to be large, significant. Each drilling platform is unique in nature, and they're often requiring all of the steps of design, construction, and then operation are in harsh conditions. Another key piece, and I would say this goes certainly beyond oil and gas, is in these mega projects, project failure, late delivery is not an option. Yet, in this report that this article refers to, in the Booz Allen Hamilton report, their survey indicates that 40% of projects of this nature have budget overruns of more than 10%. So even based on the other lecture where we talk about the benefits of using design build or design bid build or using an EPC approach, doesn't ensure that the project's going to be on time. So what is one solution that this one article discusses? And it talks about improved IT. There are companies out there adopting a product lifecycle management suite of applications that include capital project management, 3D design, and virtual simulation. I'm really not going to talk too much about those things. It was just what the article was mentioning as some solutions. The end result out of this particular publication was that capital project management will enable all stakeholders to have access to information and data in a collaborative environment. So what this hopefully would mean is that it's going to reduce the non-productive time of each entity. The other part that's, again, part of an IT solution is that CPM offers dashboards that have key performance indicators, or KPIs, so that the company can select what pieces of information to show on the dashboard on a single screen that highlights the most important information. On that same subject, right now I'm working on a research project. We've been doing research with Lockheed Martin for several years now, and our current project happens to be just on this kind of issue, so it's kind of timely. The work we're doing for Lockheed is in maintenance, repair, and overhaul of some of their aging aircraft. And so when they get an aircraft coming onto the site, and it can take 9 months to 12 to, unfortunately, 18 months sometimes to get that aircraft back out. And they're trying to come up with IT solutions that present meaningful information in dashboard fashion at both from the executive level all the way down to the floor level. So we're actively working on something similar to this. So that was what this article was talking about, and it mentioned this Booz Allen Hamilton report from 2006, which talks about the challenges, current and future challenges of capital project execution in the oil and gas industry. So what was it saying? In this particular report, they mentioned three main things in their summary. That we need to rethink the project framework to leverage internal scarce resources to handle complex projects. Second item is standardizing design. So, of course, this is something that's common whenever you talk about supply chains. If you can standardize any kind of design, you'll reduce project-to-project costs because you don't have complete renovation and customization every time you start a new project. Re-examining the relationship between owners and suppliers. So this was one of their big things too, is that there seems to, even though both parties recognize there's inefficiency, they both don't have, they're not on the same page with regard to what those inefficiencies are. Rethinking the contractual framework and increasing the level of constructive cooperation so concerns are addressed jointly. So, in recent years, there's been an unprecedented wave of capital spending, but performance was still lagging. Of course, this is in 2006. I haven't actually, some of you may know better than I do, and even in terms of the total expenditures in recent years during the economic downturn, although I still believe there's a lot of work in this area going on. It may still be growing further. But in 2006, $230 billion in exploration and production alone, and many examples of multi-billion-dollar overruns. So what are the specific issues? Project management performance, risk management, and human resources management seem to be the leaders in what this study found. And as I said, the leaders of the oil and gas firms and the EPC firms share common concerns there. What happens when you have larger and larger projects? They drive greater risk, and making quick decisions near impossible to make. And in this particular industry, operating in frontier areas as opposed to traditional production regions brings on new complications that are economical, geographic in nature, some political issues as well. And as we try to find improvements, obviously some of the solutions are technology-based. Many of them are. And are we making sure that those technology solutions have been proven out before they get thrown into a live project? And also a tighter labor market can lead to significant delays. If you're in an area where you just can't get the resources to perform work, there's really not a lot you can do. And you can get only so many people to relocate to an area to make things happen. So the big disconnect between owner and contractor is that the owners perceive no particular major shortfall. They recognize that there are issues, but they're not spelling them out maybe nearly as specific as some of the contractors. So the contractors are having these four particular areas as issues. In fact, what I want to do before I continue here is go to the paper. Right. I wanted to pull this into the presentation, but the PDF didn't allow me to do it when I was at this taping time. So this is a figure that's in there, and this goes back to at least the areas of concern are similar for both the companies and the suppliers. So along the x-axis we have very important, being closer to the point of origin, and then unsatisfied versus satisfied. So you'd want to have very important, very satisfied down in this lower region. But the ones that are not, that where these companies and suppliers are unsatisfied are near the top. So performance management, risk management, human resources. And it happens that we see similar areas of concern over here. So that was, I actually should have brought that up a little earlier, but this is just a graphic that illustrates that common piece of information. And then this graphic is going to represent what we're talking about right now. In that there's a disconnect between where the unsatisfaction exists, and you can see that in general the EPC firms are more critical of basically all the areas than the oil and gas firms. This maybe actually leads to an interesting idea about how surveys are actually done, and maybe the way the questions were posed based on whether you're a contractor or owner lead you to answer in a certain way. But the main theme here, and we'll come back to the presentation, are these 4 areas: execution across the company, resource scheduling, risk identification, and operations integration. So execution across the company, if there can be planning that's done across projects as opposed to for specific projects only, obviously that will drive some improvement across the supply chain. Resource scheduling. And you can see there will be a theme of integrating projects so that you have more awareness about resource use across projects. Risk identification. Owners are offering lump sum contracts while contractors are managing most of the supply chain risk alone. So you can kind of see there why there may be the owner's not recognizing this is as much of a problem as the contractors. And operations integration. So I don't really think I need to mention that much more beyond that. It also talks about the short supply of technical talent. There's the average age of the oil and gas worker, I think in the article it said between 45 and 50 years old. So it's aging. Within 5 to 10 years, many of the workforce will be retiring, and there's not a sufficient pool, a replenishment pool for the industry. Some of this may be because there's a single project mentality, although those projects are long-lasting, but then what's going to happen after that project ends? And are workers basically taking on a job for just a project, and then maybe without employment afterwards. The article goes on to talk about the trying to improve the image of the industry, to encourage more younger, recent graduates to consider this as a viable career path. I know for one, at Clemson, that we've seen certainly a tick up in both the hiring and the acceptance of offers with our students. And then having financial compensation to justify working in remote locations. So to summarize, the report reemphasizes these 3 points: adding a more global project management framework to increase performance, trying to adopt central management of key functions, and of course this is true especially true for mega projects. Standardizing design and target technological innovations. Where we can, we want to leverage what we learn on one project to another one. And revisiting the nature of the owner-supplier relationship. Some of this, and I think this is where I get a little bit more excited when we'll start doing some analytical models, is that there's a good bit of rhetoric in some of these papers and discussions about supply chain issues, and how do you actually enact something here. So there's one side from a managerial point of view that you can lay out a framework for this kind of trying to find improvements in this fashion and make sure that everybody's, it's almost kind of more relationship-based and making sure that people understand where they can find improvements. But a lot of what we're going to talk about in the course is looking at analytical data to suggest specifically where improvements can be made. These were the two references. All of this information is going to be available to you from the Blackboard website. Thank you.